Good morning, everyone. David McCoy here, Ochimo Properties, Real Estate Matters, and it's a Sunday, and so I'm dressed down again. So I decided to wear my Bike to Beat Cancer shirt today because it's an awesome charity. And anyway, kind of getting back on topic here, we're continuing the series on frequently asked questions about commercial real estate. And today I thought I'd talk a little bit about zoning. So zoning is one of those things that's different for commercial real estate than residential, because in most cases, probably 90-95% of the cases with residential real estate, the zoning is not an issue. If there's a house there, then you're pretty certain that it has the zoning to be a residential house. And not only that, but if the zoning has changed, normally the use, especially for like a residential use, would be grandfathered in. You can have a situation where the opposite is not true. If you have a business, let's say you have the opposite thing occur, and you've been running a business and your business has been there for 50 years or 100 years, and they are redoing the neighborhood, they're doing development, and it has been rezoned for, say, residential use. Well, normally you can continue to operate your business there because your business was there before they made that change. And so in most places that would not be an issue. However, and this would depend a little bit on the laws and regulations and what they did. In some places, you couldn't sell it. It's not that you can't sell it at all, but once it has sold, the new owner has to abide by the new zoning. So zoning can be, in commercial real estate, you have to think about zoning. Lots of times, sort of in similar situations, if there's an office building and it's in place, you're pretty safe assuming that a standard office use is okay in that building. But that can be a little different. I mean, you can have situations, and also like with retail. So the thing about zoning is zoning is particular to the local area. There's not a nationwide zoning standard. There's not a statewide zoning standard. Each county and sometimes city will have their own zoning laws. So you can't just make blanket statements. There are sort of general categories. There's, residential, and there is commercial or industrial, and there may even be an agricultural. So there are sort of some general categories that you can expect, and it gives you a rough idea of what's going on there. But each county, each city will set their own zoning laws. So that's something you have to think about. If you are building something, you have to make sure that it is zoned for that. If it's not zoned for that, you need to make sure that you can get it zoned for that. There was a situation a number of years ago, and these happen really quite frequently, but a gentleman who actually was a fairly experienced developer bought a corner lot. There was retail on 3 of the 4 corners of that intersection. And so he bought actually 3 or 4 houses together on this lot, and he was going to add another retail use there. And he was certain he'd have no problems getting that rezoned because the rest of the intersection was already going that way. But the neighborhood put up a tremendous fight, and he had already bought the land, and so he was never able to do that. And ultimately, he ended up losing that land because of financial problems. So it's a very important issue. So when you're going through, you need to know about that. You need to know, is it zoned properly? And your real estate broker probably has a general idea, but it would be up to you to make sure of that. Sometimes you have things that are a little bit of a surprise. I was working with a it's actually a music school. I don't think I can say their name, or I would prefer not to right now. And we looked at a bunch of things, and there were other music schools in very similar areas, and we were, felt like there would be no problem there. And then as we got into it, they were zoned commercial, but we found out that for whatever reason, there were restrictions on specifically 4 music schools in all but one category there, which was a big surprise. If it had been live music or loud or like in a restaurant or something like that, we maybe would have understood. But with a music school, we were very surprised by that. So you do have to check. So if that happens, what you need to do is you just need to call down to the zoning department of your area and ask them. Lots of times they'll give you sort of an answer on the phone, and they may even send you a link which has something. Especially if you think there could be an issue down the road, sometimes you want to ask them for just a written opinion, and lots of times they will do that. Now, the written opinion does not automatically prevent you from having a problem. Someone could still face a complaint. They may have a hearing and rule differently, but it's in your favor. I mean, it shows that you went to the effort to check it out and you got an opinion, and so it helps, although it's not an absolute protection against there being an issue down the road. On top of zoning, sometimes you'll have things that are maybe overlay districts, which is not, the property may be zoned correctly, but let's say it's in a historical district, or sometimes there'll be a sort of a neighborhood development restrictions on top of your zoning. So you need to know about those kinds of things too. If you're in a historical district, it may very well be that there are a number of things that you can't do to the property. So you may not be able to, I know that locally, in some of the historic areas of our downtown area, they're in historical overlay districts, and you're not allowed to change the windows. If the windows are original windows, you have to keep them there. And a lot of these laws are good, but maybe the windows are, they're in fact, in most cases they're not efficient in terms of energy usage, and lots of times people want to change that out, and you would be prohibited from that. So zoning is one of those things that comes into play with commercial real estate. You need to know, and lots of times your particular use has to be in a particular zoning. There are some things that are, we'll say, for example, industrial uses that are considered what we sometimes call dirty industry. And that means that they specifically want to limit those to certain areas where they don't want that just anywhere. So if you have one of those types of uses, there are only a certain number of places that you can go. So that it comes up really quite a bit. I had a friend of mine who was looking for a particular zoning for a client he has downtown, and he called me and asked me about it, and I looked it up on the zoning maps, and I said, have you looked at the zoning maps, because what you want doesn't exist. He's like, oh, they're willing to pay whatever it takes, and I'm like, well, that's not the issue. The issue is that there's not that much land available with that zoning in that area. I mean, they need to figure out, they can move out a little further and they can probably find it, or they can find something existing and tear it down and maybe find it, but what you're looking for is not there. So you do have to look these things up, and it is important. So kind of the takeaway there is for commercial real estate, zoning can be an issue, and you need to be sure that you understand that. Your real estate agent or broker may have a a pretty good idea of whether or not it's okay, but if it's, you really need to know specifically about your use. I mean, it would be up to you to check it out and just make sure. And if you know for sure ahead of time, you'll save everybody a lot of time if you let your broker know. So anyway, I guess that's it for now. If you have any other questions about zoning or really about anything regarding commercial real estate, shoot me an email or leave a comment. I would love to have the feedback. I would love to try to answer it. If I can help you in any way, let me know. And this is day 7 of my 50 days of video. And again, I've had a handful of people who've been looking at the videos and getting some good feedback. So I appreciate the feedback. If you feel like this was a helpful video and you liked it, please hit like for me. Also, if you think someone else might benefit from it, please share it. And if you want to continue hearing some of these, please hit subscribe. Thanks very much, and happy Sunday. It's I didn't know if I should mention this or not, but it's Groundhog's Day. We got the word that the groundhog says we're going to have an early spring, and it's also Super Bowl Sunday if you're going to watch that. So I hope you all have a terrific Sunday, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.